lab number 5.1. With this lab, we are starting the new lab series that will be called Advanced Day, and in this lab series that will be split into 3 different parts. The first part, this one, is Linux, the second part is Windows, and the third part is about Bluemix. We will try to learn how to install MobileFirst Platform on 3 different environments. On Linux machine, in our case, it will be Ubuntu Server 14.04. On Windows, it will be Windows Server 2012, and on Bluemix in Docker containers. Basically, in lab 5.1, in this particular lab, we will start with importing the virtual machine with pre-installed Ubuntu Server version 14.04 that has nothing except the default installation. So we will need to add some prerequisites packages that are required for us in order to continue. And we will configure and make sure that X server is working in our host machine in order to be able to grab the interface, UI interface from the Linux machine to the host machine. X server is a pretty easy thing to configure and set up. In my case, the host machine is Mac. In your case, if you have a different host machine like Windows, for example, or Linux, you can set up it in different ways. And basically, inside the description of this lab, you will find the instruction how to set up it for different operation systems. So we'll start with importing the virtual machine from OVA file, which you can download from Dropbox or Google Drive, and the link is in the description of this lab. So basically, I will be using the VMware Fusion, which is default option for macOS from VMware to have the virtual machines running as it was, for example, in a player or workstation on Windows or Linux. And basically, in my case, I'm using the import button. If you're running the VMware player, you just need to click open and point to the location of the OVA file that you downloaded. And basically that's it. The final step is to point somewhere where you want to save this virtual machine, and it will be imported. Ideally, nothing else will be needed, so no additional configuration, but just make sure that after import you will have the same settings that you will see now for my machine. So the crucial things are the memory, so you need at least 3 gigs to be configured, and the network configuration. It should be configured to share network with your host machine. In my case, it's Mac, and actually it's called NAT, so it should be set up automatically. Everything else is optional. In my case, I can click finish, and actually the virtual machine should start automatically. In your case, if it's not happening, just click run and that's it. So now I can close the control panel of my VMware Fusion and log in inside my virtual machine. So the login and the username are default for our lab series, so IBM as the username, and the password is Q with uppercase, Q with lowercase, 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically that's it. Unfortunately, if you have a default installation of Ubuntu Server like we are now having with this image, we don't have SSH server set up. So we need to install it first to be able to connect to this machine from our host machine. We will be using terminal from host machine. So we will do it with the command sudo apt get install and then open SSH server, just like that. The password for sudo is the same, Q with uppercase, Q with lowercase, and 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to click. You need to select basically by typing why that you would like to continue. And after installation, you should be able already to connect to this machine. The only thing is that you don't know the IP address yet. So that one can be found using command ifconfig. And by typing it inside the Ethernet 0, you should have the internet address. In my case, it's 192.168.42.154. In your case, most probably the IP address will be different. So everywhere you should be using your IP address. So my suggestion is to copy this and type it somewhere on a paper or whatever, because you will need it a lot. So let me open the terminal on my host machine and try to connect using SSH to that IP address. On Windows, you should use putty or something like that, and you should be already kind of have X server set up by following the instruction in this lab description. So that's what I've did. I've already set up the X server for Mac, and I can use this terminal and try to initiate the X11 forwarding session. So basically the way how we'll do it is we will type SSH -x with uppercase. This will mean that we will try to get X session. And then the username, in our case it's IBM, because we don't have the default username on my machine on that Ubuntu server, so we need to connect as IBM user, and the IP address. So IP address in my case is this one, 192.168.42.154. Make sure you're using your IP address. Again, this is really important. So because this is the first connection, we actually need to add, to authorize this connection and add the key fingerprint. This is not unique for Mac. Many operation systems doing that, but maybe you won't get this message. It depends where you're running it. In my case, I will actually need to do it, so I'm typing yes, and then the final thing is we need to provide the password for IBM user in order to connect to this server. Again, WQ with uppercase, WQ with lowercase, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it, we're inside. So you see in the message like this, and most probably it will appear on your machine also, that X authority doesn't exist. It will be created after first run. So actually we connected now, and after the second initiation of connection, it will be already there. We can test this by pressing Ctrl D to actually exit from current session, and then try to connect again. You should be able to see that message is no longer exists. So now the X session should be able to run. And before actually trying to run, we will install some additional packages. So you can copy this installation command from the description of this lab series. So what we are installing is the few necessary things. Basically starting with unzip and ands and also MC that will allow us to edit and navigate easier for those who actually are not familiar with the Linux console so much. Some required packages like lib SWT and so on that are required either for DB2 installation, either for Eclipse run, and our installation manager is based on Eclipse. And the final thing is we are also installing X11 apps. So this is the really small package that contain X11 apps that allow us to test and actually see how the X11 forwarding for our X server working. So basically that's it. Click enter, enter the password for sudo is the same. For IBM user, select yes, and you will start installing. So now everything depends on your network connection. In my case, network connection is pretty good, so it will take about 1 minute to set up everything, and we will continue afterwards. So basically that's it. Now the final thing that we would like to test before going to Java setup is actually to test whether our X session is working. So we can do it by running something like xclock, which is one of the apps from that packages, and it should show the clock on your host machine that is actually running on the Ubuntu server. So in my case, the clock looking like that. It should be also working in your case. If you have any issues with running X session, go back to the articles how to set up X server on your machine. So basically that's it. And now the final step, because before finishing this lab, is to set up Java. So we will achieve that by first of all adding the repository for Oracle JDK. The thing is that MobileFirst Platform server officially do not support open JDK, so you should use either IBM virtual machine, either the Oracle JDK, and the version should be for now 6 or 7. So basically we are adding repository to easily install Oracle JDK, and basically we just need to pass the text that you can copy from the description of this lab. Click enter and the repository will be added. Then you need to run sudo apt get update to fetch the changes from that repository, and afterwards you will be able to run the installation script for Oracle 7 JDK install. So it will look like this. Sudo apt get install, and then basically the name is Oracle Java 7 installer. That's it. We need to agree with the downloading and setup of this package. And before it will actually set up, you will need to accept the license terms. So you will need to select yes. And afterwards, the setup will be continuing with downloading of JDK package. It's quite huge, so it's about 150 megabytes, or even maybe more, I'm not sure, no, 150. So if you have quite strong internet connection, like in my case, it's less than a minute, otherwise it may take a while. And basically afterwards you should be all set up. So I can clear the screen and also minimize my VMware image with Ubuntu Server. And basically that's it. On this step, our first lab in this lab series 5.1 is finished. Thank you.